Okay, thanks for coming, guys. Did anyone hear the video? I know, Kevin, you heard it. Anyone hear the last week's? You heard it too. Okay, so basically, just a little recap for those of you which didn't hear last week's video. Is on. We just talked a little bit about what INFJ was, and the INFJ was just introversion, intuition, feeling, and judging. So it's just these are two dichotomy pairs. The opposite being extroversion, sensing. Thinking and perceiving. So when people first start off with MBTI, they start off with this, and they start off with the other letters. You've all done the test, which are basically choices. These are preferences between extroversion and introversion. And what we've all come to the stage whereby we are discovered that we are INFJs, so with a preference for introversion, with a preference for intuition, which is seeing the big picture. Introversion is kind of how we recharge, how we get our energy. We get our energy from being alone, rather than extroverts who get energy from going out and meeting people. At the end of the day, we normally want to go home and rest and just read a book and curl up and watch TV. We're just drained normally by the end of each day. And the thinking feeling dichotomy pair, again, it's to do with how we make decisions. So when we make a decision as someone who prefers feeling, we imagine ourselves like we are in the situation itself. We will say like, how is the decision going to affect the whole group of people? Where someone with thinking typically can stand away and look at what situation that's going on around them and actually think, okay, what is the logical thing to do? I'm not going to put myself in the shoes of the situation. I'm going to look at what's the logical thing to do. So we have a preference for feeling, and the last pair being perceiving and judging. So it's how our preference for the external world. So someone with a preference for perceiving looks at the external world and likes to keep it open and open to possibilities. With someone with a preference for judging, so we are actually people who prefer our external world to be structured and more planned and like things in to know what's happening. I had a lot of requests from people. I don't know whether some of you they wanted to know the plan for this evening. It's kind of like no surprises. We want to know what's happening. Not knowing it's kind of makes us a little bit uneasy. So I had quite a lot of messages about that. Okay, so just a brief recap about what we talked about last time. But today we're going to look at a deeper and richer understanding of MBTI. This is where the power of MBTI really comes in. It comes in with the cognitive functions, the mental functions, and the Jungian functions. It's kind of where the power of MBTI really comes from. So I just want to, anyone heard of what these cognitive functions are? Or otherwise known as mental or Jungian functions. Okay, that's probably because in most of the tests or any of the classes, when you first do this, they won't go into this level of detail. It's pretty complex. But I know you're all pretty intelligent people. Others won't be here, so I think you can start to see the beauty of what happens when you go down another level into the MBTI and just understand the power that comes from these mental functions. So we've looked at these pairs. They're actually, within the INFJ, there are 4 mental functions. And I'm going to just write them very briefly. I'm going to separate these. So you've got, we know we're intuitive, but what happens then, we need the type of intuition which we need to look at is called introverted intuition, which is what we use. So basically, introverted intuition kind of provides a basis for the meaning behind what is, what was, and what could be. So it allows for us to see things in the unconscious. Introverted intuition is not defined by what is present, past, or future. And when we use introverted intuition, we tend to read between the lines of what people say, and we try and search for the deeper meaning behind what they say. So we're listening at a deeper level. We're trying to figure out, okay, that's what they're saying, but what is it really they're really meaning? And what is it they're also trying to, where's the context of it? Where's it coming from? What is the global picture behind what they're saying? So we look at these symbols, signs, and meanings rather than just a concrete information like, oh, I had dinner, or I just finished eating. Okay, but what does that mean? Where are they coming from? So this is something that Introverted Intuition uses. It's often known as like a sixth sense. Doesn't really need any triggers from the external world to gain our insight and understanding. And we also have a sense of certainty about what will occur, because the data which feeds into Introverted Intuition comes from a whole range of sources, and then suddenly we have a burst of inspiration, a burst of insight about a particular situation or something, a particular decision that just comes to us. It often comes quite abstractly, and it's very unclear and uninterrupted. When these insights happen, we find it hard to explain to the people where these insights actually came from, because we're still introverts. So this stuff is not seen by the other people. It happens like subconsciously to our mind, a combination of many factors. And if we suddenly get an insight about what will happen, or what is a certain view, and we can't explain that easily. People explain, how do you get to that decision? It's hard to find the words to explain that to people in a logical structure, because it's pretty abstract, and we try and convey the richness and beauty that comes into this. So I'll just try and, like, if you think about Introverted Intuition, like we're talking about that flash of inspiration. So this is like the eureka moment. But in order to get there, all this data is being fed in subconsciously from the external world. And this happens not just in 2 dimensions, it can happen in 3, all kinds of dimensions. This data may be, come from or anywhere. It just feeds in. It just feeds into this thing, and it converges. And that's just when a flash of insight, a flash of brilliance, or something deeper, a deep understanding about life, about people, about certain situations, you just come in this form. And it is how it forms. It kind of crystallizes into a certain view, and it's definitely the most abstract of all the perceiving all these functions. So when I was at this Myers-Briggs training, those of us which use Introverted Intuition, which is the INFJ and the INTJ, as our dominant functions. Dominant being, there are four functions: the first, second, third, and fourth. So Introverted Intuition is our strongest function. So if you look at it like in terms of strength, this would be the longest line. I'm going to tell you about the other 3 functions we use later, and this is the weakest one. So this is our strongest function, and when we use that, it's the most abstract of all the functions. It's only used by INFJs and INTJs in the dominant position, and it's definitely hard to explain to people. It's very abstract. It's normally represented by pictures more easily than words, because it's kind of encapsulating everything. But the thing is, when we use it in a non-productive way, we can appear to be pretty rigid, and are not open to what others have to say or suggest. And if we overuse this function, it may appear like our heads is in the clouds. We may lose sight of reality, and sometimes it can have some negative aspects when we are really absorbed in our own world. So that's Introverted Intuition. The second function we use, can be seen in orders of strength. Normally, if our first function is introverted, the second one will be extroverted. So there's a pattern to it, and that happens for all 16 Myers-Briggs types. The next one will be extroverted feeling. So I'm just gonna, there's the first one, second one. So it's denoted by an F followed by subscript E to the extroverted feeling. And this is extroverted function. So after this has been processed, this is unseen. Nobody can see that in us. That's why we're seen as very complex people, which nobody really understands. They can't see all this. We have to try and bring that out in the world through extroverted feeling. And it's not our strongest function, it's our second function. So what extroverted feeling does, it evaluates ideas and events in the external world by deciding what values are involved and whether those values are consistent with the established norms of the culture, which means, when we see values that are happening in the external world which align with the established societal values, we are more likely to accept the idea. So we kind of look for maintaining positive, caring, harmonious relationships with others. We're looking for shared values. Some people who prefer extroverted feeling kind of look for common ground, common understanding, a common way to shared principles and values. So, like, certain countries have certain established societal norms, and that's kind of seen as the values of society. So we kind of like to see what are those values, and we compare that with our own and try and bring about harmony in the world, in the external world, right? Not like rocking the boat. I mean, INFJs typically, we don't rock the boat or put out views or opinions that are too much in contrast to what the room or the society views as being acceptable. Generally, unless the society norms are in contrast to our introverted intuition, that's when we can really speak up on subjects that we feel very passionate about, because we've got all this stuff already, we've formulated this thing. So if society cultural norms are going against what we believe internally, then we may speak up very strongly about something. But generally, we can keep a harmonious view about things. So it also means that when we talk to people, we try and find common ground, fishing for topics in common. And when with extroverted feeling, we kind of, we base our judgments based on what's going on in their lives. So we evaluate that our friend is in trouble. When we use extroverted feeling, we probably want to start taking some action to help our friend. Sometimes, even though our friend does not ask for help, we may see that in some way. We go towards them to help them out. The problem with this sometimes is because the help is unsolicited, or people may find it intrusive or manipulative, but we're actually trying to help to create harmony in our external world. So when we use it productively, we will find ourselves connecting easily with people who hold the same values as us, and we would also be seen as warm, caring individuals. And we would also spend time building relationships with others before taking care of ourselves. But what happens when this is used in a not so healthy manner? It can feel like we are sacrificing for other people. If that happens, we need to reassess our values and what values need to be released so that we can focus on taking care of ourselves. So this is very much linked to harmony in the external world. This can also, what will happen in a negative sense is because we've seen a lot of stuff happening in our internal world. We've formulated a lot of visions about people. This can take place in an explosion of emotion. A feeling can come out in a violent fashion, uncharacteristic of INFJs, but can happen because it's a way for this to be expressed in the external world. So that brings us to our third function, which is introverted thinking. And what introverted thinking is, I'm just going to move over here. So introverted thinking is our third function. It's not quite as strong as our intuition or our feeling. But what happens is introverted thinking is used to kind of explore ideas. So if you think about it like a row of dots, Introverted thinking allows us to logically categorize ideas and concepts. This function looks at applying principles and truth into decision-making functions to the use of precise categories. So what it means is like when we come up with an idea, we're kind of linearly exploring it, joining the dots to make sure things make sense logically. So you're kind of exploring in a linear fashion. So our ideas can kind of go from, can kind of spiral around. You're trying to make logical sense of things in the unseen world. So people who use it as one of their stronger functions, they kind of debate things. They kind of play devil's advocate. So they're trying to find the logical hole. So if you said something here or here, which is not in line with their line of thinking, you may get they'll like discard that information. And we did that too. Even though it's our third function, we use it to quite a certain extent. We're trying to find logical consistencies in arguments and whether things make sense, and exploring things. And if something makes sense, we'll add it on to our train of thought, and we'll kind of explore things to many degrees. How this relates to introverted intuition, because remember, introverted intuition, NI, is our strongest function. We are trying to create a lattice or structure or something about the entire universe, entire world. So this will be one that this will be one of our thoughts. This again spiral in all kind of degree. Another one of our thoughts may be the same kind of thing. Keep going around, and we're trying to connect these together. And we've got another one here going on. I think you suddenly see the idea. So we're trying to connect every single idea together to get some kind of permanent structure of our entire world. And this is what's going on in our brain. This is introverted, this is intuitive. So these feed in together until you get these eureka moments. Does anyone know what I'm talking about, your eureka moments? Where suddenly you just, like, oh, that makes sense, I finally get it now. Yeah. So this is the internal processes about our mind, how it works. And this feeds into these ideas. And these are, introverted thinking is also areas of interest. It can be relationships, finance, work, people, kind of exploring these ideas and then linking it back to something that makes sense. So we're always trying to refine our framework, and we have categories for certain things, and that's going on in our mind. So like developing websites and internal structures are what people with introverted thinking use. So that kind of helps to the whole information architecture in this kind of field uses this quite a bit, but we use it to some extent, but not as strong as those people who use it first, like the INTPs. They design those a lot more. And the last function we have is, where should I go now? Sorry, I move here. It's extroverted sensing, and extroverted sensing makes us aware of our external world. It's denoted by SE, and it's our weakest function of all. It focuses on the present and is not concerned with the past or the future. So the more developed this function is, the more we're aware of the details, the color, the taste, the smells, different types of fabrics, what we're wearing, and temperatures. And people who use extroverted sensing tend to be attracted by beautiful things, exciting stimuli. It's like the cover of a magazine, or when you're talking to people, is bright. There's a sensing, extroverted sensing kind of things. And so we also use that to keep in touch with what's happening in the world right now. So if it's in the business world, the focus will be on where the competitors are doing. What are other people doing? What are the products that are different from our products? And when we use it in interpersonal relationships, it's used to recognize when people are sick, or something looks nice, or something that person sounds excited. It's very instantaneous. It's in the moment. and it's very much something that's exciting. It's something that's really excites our weakest function. We don't typically use it as much as the other three functions. So, any questions on the four functions that INFJ uses? It's okay. I'm just going to quickly contrast them to the other four functions that we don't use, and these are so we use these N, I, F, E, T, I, and S, E, and the opposite is that we don't use that are also, there are only 8 mental functions. So there are other people who use the other 4, and people who use a combination of what we use and what other types use. And we don't use it as much as introverted intuition. So extroverted intuition is kind of creates possibilities and what could be. So rather than being convergent, it's more like divergent, and it looks at many different possibilities and ideas. Another thing is where introverted intuition is typically very deep, so we're very deep, complex individuals. Extroverted intuition, just going to write here, it kind of more along the surface, but it's wider. So it's they cover more ground, and introverted intuition, we like to go deep, focusing on one subject at a time. Like that's the ground level, we just go deep. And the extroverted intuition goes from idea to idea, very broad. Our ideas are very deep. The ideas are more broad, expansive, creative, and there's a lot of connections to different ideas. We typically like to focus on one idea at a time. Other one, introverted feeling, is the opposite. Introverted feeling. So introverted feeling, people who use this thrive on internal harmony. They're more aware of their own values, ethics, and beliefs. And we may see people with introverted feeling as being more individualistic, more and maybe not as concerned for having external harmony. So they're very quick to know what they believe, and they're quick to speak it out. I believe that I'll speak it out because it's my internal values and principles. Whereas in INFJ, we look at, okay, that's their values. I don't want to speak mine out because my values may be in contrast with theirs, and I don't want to have to disagree first unless we know people well enough. Then we can, we feel safe to disagree. But when we first meet someone, we're like, this is my view, this is my belief. We're not so quick to throw it out there. We want to see what's the view of the room. So people who use introverted feeling, everyone has their own sets of values. What is internally important is more important to them than what's externally important. So as long as there's things that are not, they cannot make room for other people to be outspoken and to make their own decisions, and internal harmony is more important to them. They kind of, we can't see their feelings because they're kind of holding it, they're guarding it quite well, like how we guard our intuition and thinking. You can't see those. It comes out in other ways. Theirs would come out in the opposite pair of that, which is extroverted thinking. And so I just backtrack a bit more on the pairs. They're always these. If you use introverted intuition, you're always going to use extroverted sensing as a preference. You're going to use extroverted intuition, you're always going to use introverted sensing as a preference pair. And the same goes for extroverted feeling. And these are kind of the feeling thinking pairs are these are paired together. So the combination of these 4 pairs, each using 2 of them, creates 16 different combinations in this. So that's where you get the 16 types from. This is when you break it down one level. So just keep that up there for reference. So I go back to extroverted thinking. This is more they're using objective analysis to arrive at conclusions. This is more linked to the scientific method. This is linear sequential steps in policy making. So introverted thinking is kind of all over the place. Extroverted thinking is more linear. This is step 1, step 2, 3, 4. It's linked to policy making, it's linked to law, it's linked to medicine, it's linked to science. These are easy to follow steps. And if you are working in government or these kind of fields, economics and so on, things are very structured. And as an INFJ, we find this structure quite restrictive. We don't just want to be A, please, C, D, do that, and you'll be okay. Because our mind works introverted thinking, and on the other hand, it's going, why not go from here to 4, and maybe you can go up to 2 and 3, and this will be a better way to do it. So we find people use extroverted thinking quite rigid, and they're working to achieve a logical decision, and sometimes because they're using this method to do things, they're not as all-encompassing as introverted thinking, which is more holistic and looks at ways to come into, because it's very sequential. They may miss stuff that's outside the box. So they're really boxed in. They can't see, they don't want, well, because of time constraints and other things, they don't see stuff outside, whereas introverted thinking, kind of links outside the box, and why not consider this, and maybe we can find something better. But the flip side of that is really hard to explain what this is to someone, especially if you're using government policy. So this is really easy to follow, easy steps, it's logical, it makes sense. If you're in a courtroom, if you're doing law, if you're doing medicine, it's scientific, it's like A plus B, C equals D. That's your conclusion. You can't argue with my hard logic. Don't try to talk to me with this because I'm just trying to stick to this box. Don't talk to me about stuff outside the box. And that's kind of conflicts between those who use introverted thinking and extroverted thinking. Final one is introverted sensing. Introverted sensing allows us to recall previous experiences in detail, and the detail is not only brings into the frame of mind the physical realities of that, so it's like memories and experiences from the past. It also brings back into the forefront of your mind the emotions associated with those memories. And there's preference with people who preference extroverted sensing. Introverted sensing is actually harder for us to access it. We are unable to recall details unless those details fit into the whole big picture. Details for detail's sake, dates of birth or other random facts, numbers or things that don't seem to make sense on its own, I find it quite hard to access. It takes a lot of brain power. We don't really use our minds for that much. And when you have these people use inferred sensing, sometimes the emotions that come up when they recall a memory are so strong that they may actually discard information in the present. They may just, no, that happened before and it's going to happen again. And that point, the current situation the reality of the present gets distorted and replaced by their own internal image of what has happened. And it makes it sometimes hard for people who use introverted sensing to take into account new information. And people who use it appear to be very thoughtful, methodical. People who use introverted sensing dominant are the ISTJs and ISFJs, which are about 17% of men and about around 16% of women are ISFJs. So a lot of them, they make up a lot of our society, people who use this and this. ISTJs, ISFJs. You see them everywhere in the workplace. You've got loads of them. So there's definitely potential for conflict there, because when they use this structure, it doesn't work with us. If they're using introverted sensing, we may find it difficult to talk to them on that wavelength. Details, facts, and what's happened in the past is going to be pretty taxing. So those are the 8 cognitive functions. Does anyone have any questions before we move on to how this affects, how stress, how we could get stressed out? Is that okay? I hope it's not too complex for this time of the night. Before the INFJ and stress, so that's one of the things I talked about. INFJs, we get stressed out pretty easily, and what makes us stressed out is pretty important. So I'm just going to talk a little bit. Actually, I don't need the board for this. I just talk a little bit about what the things that stress us out. So before we get to the stress side, what energizes us, what makes us feel alive and alert is when we have flexibility in our schedule, over work and methods and results. We have also maximum autonomy about our work. We can go about our work and do our own thing, and we can explore ideas in this detail. We can explore these ideas, and we can come out with our own conclusions. We also like clarity in our role and responsibilities. We're J, so we like a structured external world. We like it when we know how we fit in, what we're doing fits into the big picture, and whether our values are in tandem to the values of the organization that we are part of, or the overall big picture. We like it when that happens. And we also appreciate colleagues who are honest and communicate directly. We don't like political environments. We like people to be, okay, just say it, say it, be clear about it. We don't like the politics involved and negotiating politics in the workplace. We also like to be able to, being a J as well, to achieve closure on tasks and projects. It's pretty open-ended task with a deadline that is just, you don't know when the deadline is, so it keeps getting pushed into the future. It's going to be really, really draining on us, and we don't like that, and it stresses us out. We like to achieve closure. Okay, this the time is we're going to work sequentially to meet the deadline, and we normally plan in advance to meet our deadlines. So what really can stress us out is a lot of the opposite of these. Dealing with details, and especially things in the outer world, the inferior function. I mean, being our weakest function, details in the external world really can cause us to be scattered and disorganized. We don't like unfamiliar environments. And we also don't like working with people who are ignorant, irrational, or illogical, and who don't see the big picture, because we're such long-term big picture. Everything's got to fit into a big picture. We don't like that when they're not as big picture people involved. Another thing is stresses out is unexpected events. So once our internal picture is formed, this is our picture that's taken a long time to form. It's hard to disconnect and to take into other people's views when this picture is disconnected, if we get more stressed out. Same time, being introverts, extroverting too much does stress us out. With too much extroversion, we'll have to retreat into our corner and recover and be pretty intolerant of intrusions. So what happens when we're under stress? I mean, we've all been under stress. Stressful work, stressful jobs, stressful country overall, I guess. So what happens when we're under stress? So when that happens, all the data from the external world is overwhelming. So we attempt to control a lot of details in that environment. So I have a friend, INFJ friend, who cleans the house in extreme detail when she's under stress. She'll just like turn it spick and span. Everything has got to be, it's familiar to anyone. I do that to some extent too. Just everything's got to be really spick and span. It's just so stressed out. Let's just clean the house, because then it'll be okay. So there's an obsessive focus on the external world that can happen when we're under stress. Another thing that can happen, we overindulge in sensual pleasures, because sensing is our weakest function. This is too much going on in our head. just go into overeating, binging on activities, watching and doing harm to our bodies and losing control. Just as a way to escape all the stresses in our crazy mind, is just go out and just be ourselves. And then what happens when we do that? If we lose control, we get to beat ourselves up, and it's like, why did I do that? It's like, we might just buy random things. I'll go into a department store and I'll just buy like just random things because I'm like really stressed out. It's like, maybe I just buy this thing, I just need it. I don't know why. I just need it. I don't really need it. It's just like some kind of obsession with just doing something. Another thing that happens when we're stressed, we become quite adversarial towards the external world. So the world spells danger to us. It's pretty dangerous out there, and like even coming here tonight, I think it's probably quite dangerous. So I was like, oh no, it's like gonna meet a bunch of strangers. It's really dangerous. It's like there's a lot of funny things can happen. So, and we anticipate the worst, and when that happens, we may blame things or circumstances or people. When the external world doesn't seem right, just lash out and blame people or circumstances. So the anger can be very strong and intense when it's expressed through the external feeling function. So what happens when we're under stress for long periods of time? We enjoy again muscle tension, headaches, and difficulty sleeping. Overindulge, as we talked about, cleaning, eating, and exercising. Organizing your work desk, your workstation, your environment, just making it really neat is what happens under prolonged stress. And in the workplace, other people may find us very unnaturally angry and fault-finding and concerned with small trivial details. And so there is a way to return to a less stressed state. And how do we do that? And there are certain ways that we can do practically to help us be less stressed. First thing is being alone. Time alone is very important for us. We need to recharge and access our dominant intuition and just explore that by ourselves. Withdraw from people, take a quiet walk, exercise, recharge yourself. Nothing you can do is to focus on your hobbies, interests and recreation, your sports, and going out and doing something in the physical world. Schedule to take some time off from work. One thing is you can, if there are other people around you who are able to lighten your schedule and lighten your workload by taking care of your sensing needs and the details in your life, then that will help a lot. And another thing is setting realistic goals for ourselves. That we tend to be pretty perfectionistic in many areas, and because this is converging all the time, we want to see everything have a nice things in the external world meet our internal perception of what things could be. So we tend to be pretty perfectionistic about many different areas, and we need just to set more realistic goals instead of having so high standards for ourselves and for other people. And another thing is many INFJs fall back on religious beliefs to help them through their stressful times. Having some purpose and meaning and perspective of the overall picture kind of helps to make you more at rest. So that's pretty much the end of my talk tonight. Is there any questions? Oh, okay, no, it's fine. Yeah, or if you want Q&A, I can. Any Q&A? Offline. Okay, that's fine. Okay, no worries. Thanks. Thanks, guys.